Hello everyone, this is Nathan from CMAcoach.com, and I would like to welcome everyone to this video. Today I will be going over Cumulative Average-Time Learning Model, and this video is especially made for one of our community members, Allison. If you're watching this, a shout out to you. Thanks for asking me to put this together. I'm very glad to do it. I believe that it will be helpful to you and also to all the other CMA Coach community members. But of course, I always welcome feedback. So if you have any feedback for me about this video, please send me an email, or you can also use the comment section below, and I will make sure to go through it and improve on it for the next video. At the end of the day, I'm doing this for you and for everyone else who's watching this actually. I want this to be a resource that you can use as you prepare for the CMA exam. All right, so what is Cumulative Average-Time Learning Model? This model uses a constant percentage of decline in average time per unit each time that the cumulative quantity of units produced doubles. Okay, so I have prepared a sample question here that we'll go over to kind of go explain in detail the concept of the cumulative learning model. Okay, all right. So Aerosub Inc. has developed a new product for a spacecraft that includes the manufacturing of a complex part. The manufacturing of this part requires a high degree of technical skill. So management believes there is a good opportunity for its technical force to learn and improve as they become accustomed to the production process. The production of the first unit requires 10,000 direct labor hours. So if an 80% learning curve is used and 8 units are produced, the cumulative average direct labor hours required per unit of the product will be. So first of all, we have to look at the question and see all the different numbers that are being provided to us and if those numbers are relevant to the question. Because in the CMA exam, you may get information that is not really relevant. They're just putting it out there and they're hoping that you will understand that it's not relevant. So always pay attention to those little things. In this case, we have they are telling us that it takes 10,000 direct labor hours to produce the first unit. Is this number important? Yes. Okay. It's important because they're asking us to calculate the average hours required per unit. So we need this 10,000 hours. So let's write that down, 10,000 hours. Next, the next number or figure provided is the learning curve percentage of 80%. Is this important? Absolutely. Why? Because we're trying to calculate the average time per unit, and the learning curve percentage plays a big part in it. Okay, and the last number provided is that 8 units are produced, so a total of 8 units. So we need to come up with the cumulative average direct labor hours for those 8 units. So all those 3 numbers are good and we can use them. 10,000 hours, 80% learning curve, and 8 units produced in total. Okay, so now that we have this, we have to write down the formula. How do we calculate this particular question? So first of all, we start with the 10,000 hours to produce the first unit. Okay, so once we have the 10,000 hours, and as we know from the definition of cumulative average learning model, that the cumulative percentage is applied only when the units produced doubles. Okay, so when it doubles, then we apply the 80% learning curve. So we start with opening parentheses. So when it goes from one unit to the next, it doubles, right? So we're at number 2 for double, times 80%. Okay, and we did this when it doubled from 1 unit to 2 units. Now from 2 units, it's gonna double again to 4 units. So when it hits 4 units, we apply the learning curve. And then we represent that by pretty much writing down the same thing. 2 for doubling times 80%. And that signifies 4 units. Now it's going to double again from 4 to 8. So we need to also calculate that as well. And we use that same formula, 2 for doubling times 80%. Okay, so does that make sense? So if you were to take your calculator and do the math, do 2 times 0.8, 2 times 0.8, and 2 times 0.8, and then take that and multiply by 10,000 hours, the total will be 40,960 hours that it took to produce all the 8 units. Okay? Now this is interesting because if we did not apply the learning curve, it would have just taken 10,000 direct labor hours times 8, right? And that would have given us 80,000 hours. But because we're trying to apply the learning curve model here, so we need to apply the 80% that management believes is appropriate. Okay, so once we have the 40,960 total hours for the 8 units, now we have to calculate the cumulative average direct labor hours per unit. And to do that, we just take the 40,960 hours for the entire 8, which that's the cumulative, and we divide it by the number of units produced, in this case, 8. So that gives us a total of 5,120 hours per unit. So now that we have the answer, one thing I would like to point out, something for you to keep in mind when you're practicing and also when you're taking your actual exam, is that there are 2 different models for this type of calculations or this type of analysis. We have the incremental unit time learning model, right? And then the one we just did, which is the cumulative average time learning model. In the incremental unit time learning model, that one, in that particular model, you need to calculate the amount of time required to manufacture the last unit. Okay, in this case, will be the 8th unit. And that's the difference between the incremental model and the cumulative model. In the cumulative model, make sure that the question is asking for the average number of hours per unit. Okay, so that's the average of the total units produced after applying the learning curve. In the incremental model, most likely you will be asked to calculate the amount of time required to manufacture the last unit. Okay, like I said, in this case would be the 8th unit. So the numbers are going to be different, and you may notice that on the exam, even in your practice exams, that you may use the incremental model when you were supposed to use the cumulative model, but you will still find the answer in the multiple choice question. And that can be confusing because you may think that you found the correct answer because they have shown it to you as an option to select. They do that so that they're really testing you, right? So they will put things out there to see if you really know the material or not. So keep that in mind, and we'll jump on to the next question. Okay, so now we have a new problem. So a manufacturing company has the opportunity to submit a bid for 20 units of a product on which it has already produced 2 10-unit lots. The production manager believes that the learning experience observed on the first 2 lots will continue for at least the next 2 lots. The direct labor required for the first 2 lots was as follows: 5,000 direct labor hours for the first lot of 10 units, 3,000 additional direct labor hours for the second lot of 10 units. The learning rate experienced by the company on the first 2 lots of this product using the cumulative average time learning model is. So this is the inverse of our previous problem. In the previous problem, we were given the learning curve percentage, and we just had to come up with the total hours, come up with a total average hours per unit. In this case, we're given the hours already, but we're not given the percentage of the learning curve, and that's what we have to calculate. Okay, So let's see. So going over the problem, the time required to produce the first lot was 5,000 direct labor hours, as stated on the question. Okay. The total time required to produce the first two lots was 8,000 direct labor hours. And I come up with that number by taking the 5,000 for the first lot plus the 3,000 for the second lot. Okay. If no learning had occurred, okay, in other words, if there was no learning curve with this particular product, the total time required to produce the first two lots would have been 5,000 for the first lot times 2, right? And I do times 2 because we have produced two lots. So that would give me a total of 10,000 direct labor hours. Again, this is if no learning had occurred. But because it did, then it's not really 10,000. But we need this number anyway. All right. So now to come up with the learning curve, we have to take the actual time required, okay, divided by the time that would have been required if no learning had taken place. So we take 8,000, right? So that's the time required, the actual time that was spent, 8,000, and that was given by the question, divided by the time that would have been required if no learning had taken place. And we know that is 10,000, right? 5,000 for the first lot times 2 lots gives us 10,000 hours. So if we take that, it gives us 80%. So we know that the learning rate for the first 2 lots was 80%. And that's the answer. I mean, sounds simple, looks simple, but I've come to realize that when I was learning this, I would read it and understand the concept, but when it was time to actually practice, it seemed a little confusing. I don't know, this is one of those tricky concepts, I guess. But yep, so that's pretty much it. So we've covered how to calculate the total average time for a particular product in the previous question, and also how to come up with the average, the cumulative average hours per unit. We also did that in the previous question. Now in this question, we've learned how to calculate the learning curve rate. Okay. In the previous question, that was given to us. In this new question, it was not. So we had to calculate the learning curve and what that was. So now that we know how to do this, I believe that this should cover the cumulative average time learning model concept. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below, and I will respond to you as soon as possible. If you found this helpful, I will appreciate if you would share it with others who may find it helpful as well. And I look forward to a next video. I'm not sure yet exactly what's going to be. I have a draft of different concepts, but you know what? What I'm thinking is probably the best way to address this is to hear from you. Instead of me going and making all these videos of maybe of concepts that you don't need help with because you already know, then it becomes a waste of time for me and it's not useful for you. So keeping this in mind, what if you tell me what concepts, what topics you would like me to record videos for? I think in this manner, I will be able to spend my time more effectively by helping you in what you actually need. So if that sounds good, also use the comments below and just write the topics that you need help with, and I will make sure to put them on the list and start recording the videos. This is actually kind of fun. So Allison, again, thank you. I hope this was helpful to you, and best of luck in your exam. And please let me know how things are going. I'm fully vested in your success, and this is why we started with these videos and everything else that I do on cmacoach.com. And I hope to connect with all of you later on. If you have any questions, I can always be reached. And I look forward to talking to you soon.